Today we had the awesome opportunity to visit with Barbara.
Barbara is incredible. She has an adult autistic son living with her. She's a widow, and she lives in Minnesota where it's incredibly cold. So we had this opportunity to evaluate her preps with her. She has a lot of things that she is doing right. We found a few things that maybe she'll want to work on. You're going to want to see this.
Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene, and we are thrilled today because we are with Barbara, who lives in Minnesota and has actually made significant progress on her preps. And we're going to do a little consultation with her. And so, Barbara, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your situation?
I am a 60-year-old widow with a autistic son living in Minnesota, enjoying our very mild winter this year. I started my journey in prepping probably about, probably 10 years ago with little things I was doing, buying this and buying that. But with recent events in the world, I have ramped up my my preps. I used to just buy stuff just to be prepared for when something happens. Now I'm more into the food prepping and canning and making sure that I have food for the future.
And one of the things when we were corresponding by email that really resonated with me is that we're kind of similar in our diets. I can't do the gluten thing, right? And I can't do preservatives. And so the normal rice and beans isn't a good healthy alternative for me. So talk to me a little bit about that path that you've been on.
Well, I found out I was celiac after my spouse passed away. It's what they call epigenetics. So my genes kicked in, and my son and I went on vacation, and I ordered a gluten-free diet so I could avoid all the grains. And when I came back, I started having symptoms because gluten was entering into my system again. And then with all the testing and stuff, they figured it was celiac disease. And so that just changed my life. And I had my son tested, and he also has both genes for celiac too. So that really changed how I look at food, and I look at what's in our food too. We eat such little processed food. We buy gluten-free pasta and canned tomatoes, basically. It's because nothing's really safe out there because you don't know what's in these seasonings. They call it natural seasonings, but I don't know what that is. It's just difficult to go in the grocery store and find stuff. It's like, it's not, there's nothing I really want to try to eat.
Yeah, I've experienced that a lot. And lately I've been doing a lot of curry from scratch, because that actually makes me feel really good. It makes it a little bit more difficult as we're prepping. So you're growing a lot of your own food. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I have 4 raised bed gardens in back, and then probably about 10 by 20, regular garden. And I do my nightshades in a regular garden, tomatoes and peppers and potatoes. And then I put some cucumbers up there too. And then in my raised beds, I do my herbs and my green beans. Carrots don't always turn out very well, and my onions don't turn out very well. It just depends. But so I want to put it into more herbs after listening to Patrick Jones, is to put it into more herbs, because I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I prefer a meat-based diet, but I can't get away from green beans with bacon. So I got to go green beans.
So I just recently became a student of Patrick Jones, his homegrown herbalist course. And it seriously is amazing. And it's kind of life-changing, because he talks about all these different herbs and how the different functions of your body and how we can heal ourselves. And I think sometimes we rush to standard medicine way too early, when, man, there's some great healing properties in what we can grow.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was making tinctures, probably started making tinctures about 3 years ago, and not knowing that I had this class available to me at a reasonable cost. So I was really excited when I found that out, that I could join that. I went to the Weston Price conference in Kansas City this year, and that's where I met him. And I went to his seminar there, and I was like, what? I can do this?
Yeah. He's pretty amazing.
He makes it very doable.
So you're doing a really good job of producing a lot of your own food. One of the things that you talked about was that you actually took a butchering class.
Yeah, yeah. He now since passed, but I had a friend who has a dairy farm, and I buy my butter and milk from him. And he had a bakery there, and he took me into the bakery. He goes, "I want to make this part my bakery and this part my butchering, but I'm going to need help with butchering." And so the state of Minnesota just came up with a butchering class. So I signed up for the class and went to a beginning butchering class and got to do my labs locally. So it was really nice. I did most of it online and did 2 days a week in lab. So maybe it was 3 days a week. It was about a year ago already. But yeah, I learned a lot. It was very interesting. And my uncle, who used to hunt a lot, gave me his equipment. So now I have a smoker, I have a meat cutter, and I have a grinder and a dehydrator. So
you're not currently raising any of your own meat, right?
no, I live in a town that kind of frowns upon having chickens and stuff in the backyard and rabbits. I don't know anybody who actually does that, but I do have a farming community and a brother who hunts. So, venison is on the menu. And I also have people I buy pork and beef from, and it comes to the point too that someday I don't know if we're going to have butchers.
Yeah.
When I was telling John, we were talking about this, and I'm like, I wish you lived close because I can raise the rabbits, but I can't butcher them. I just can't do it. I need to have a community where I've got somebody who's got those skills, who's willing to do it. I can raise them and I'm fine eating them as long as somebody else does that. It's kind of an important thing for community. So I was really proud of you with the whole raising your food stuff. I think you're doing fantastic there. You're also bottling, you're canning, and you make your own wine.
I make some of it after my husband passed away. It's just, he was always my dishwasher. I was a scientist and he was the dishwasher. He was a sous chef. So he would do all the bottle washing and cleaning and stuff. And then I slowed down afterwards, but I still do make a little wine here and there. But my wine bottles now, I have at least half of them stored with water. Why leave them empty?
Yep. Exactly right.
I think that's a really good point. So you're doing a lot of canning. You're doing a lot of freeze drying too. Tell me what you think about freeze drying.
You know what? I really think it's a godsend to someone who doesn't like standing around looking at a pressure cooker. When you're pressure cooking, I think you really have to be there. You just can't walk out of the room. So it's to me, I can put it in there, and 24 to 36 hours later, I have food that's preserved for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, just depends. I will, always have a freeze dryer. It just makes it easier, especially for leftovers. So it's just a son and I. So I take out a roast and I make the roast, and want to eat leftovers for 3 days? Yeah, not really. So we'll eat the meal and then I'll put it on a tray and I'll put it in the freezer. And when I get enough, I just stick it into the freeze dryer, and our leftovers are freeze dried for meals in the future.
That's awesome.
I love that about freeze drying. I really do. So we had talked a little bit about organizing freeze-dried food and what a huge challenge that is, especially in the Mylar. I love the mason jars, but for all of our viewers out there, if you have any great ideas for Barbara about ways to organize the Mylar so that we know what's there and it's easy to rotate, put them in the comments because we would love to hear that. Tell me about the challenge of that, Barbara.
But my challenges are just doing it. First of all, coming up with a spreadsheet, and I haven't yet to do that. But, each of my Mylars are listed with the date I made it on, how much is in there, how much water I need to put in, and of course, what it is. And then I stick it in a container. And then I do have a couple just plain old sheets of paper that list what's in my totes. But I don't have a specific sheet that'll do that. And I'd like to come up with something that would help me in the future, just be able to say, oh, I'm looking for that, that roast beef or looking for some chicken. And I'd be able to, lift up a sheet of paper and pull it off the tote and say, oh, there's chicken in this one.
I'm a spreadsheet guy.
He is a spreadsheet
guy.
So
I love spreadsheets. I love the ability to sort them easily. I love the ability to find information. So if that's something that you're comfortable doing, I think that's a great way to go. It's, it'll take a little bit of upfront work, but then you can maintain it fairly easily. I
just went to a kind of on a light budget. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of money on computer programs because they're just really expensive. So I went to a community-based computer. It's called PCs for People. They help people get PCs at low cost. And they also help you with programs. So he actually set me up with a computer program to do spreadsheets. But, Dr. Jones got in my way.
Yeah, and that's a good distraction. So
Yeah, oh, really good
it
distraction.
happened.
Storing them in the mason jars is good for me because I've got these bottle shelves that John built for me, and I can see what's there.
Oh, I saw those in your book. That's just amazing.
It
Dude,
is.
you're amazing.
He is amazing. He is. But it's so nice to be able to look and see what's there. And then if I'm hungry and I want to make dinner, I can go downstairs and I'm like, oh, we've got this and we've got this and we've got this and voila. So you're doing fabulous there. Oh, did we talk about what motivates you to prep?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
what motivates me is I work as a merchandiser and I see what's going on in these stores, and it's quite frightening to see what it was from 4 years ago, and even today when they had we had a snowstorm up here in Minnesota, and everybody was out shopping, and I was just like, don't people have at least 3 days worth of food in their house? So to me, I mean, I've been seeing that, and the empty store shelves and empty meat shelves. And during the pandemic, there was no eggs. I live off eggs. It was like the best food. And it was like really frightening to me to see that, maybe I won't have that food that keeps me healthy.
I think that's an interesting perspective because you are in those stores on a regular basis. So for me, I go once in a while, but for you that sees it regularly and you're seeing patterns that are disturbing, I think that's very telling.
Especially sometimes there's no water, no bottled water.
Okay, let's go. Let's talk a little bit about your biggest concerns. So we talked about heating in the winter is one of your biggest concerns. Tell us so far how you're set up and what your plans are.
I did a bonehead move when I moved to this house. I took out my real fireplace and put in a gas fireplace. Okay, well, now I got to deal with that. So that's one of the reasons why I bought my Blue Eddy, my solar generator, so I could plug the heat into that, so I could at least have some heat in the basement. And I have some old-fashioned kerosene heaters from like 1930. Yeah, I do have carbon monoxide detectors. I know you're going to tell me about that.
You're right on it.
And then I have a little buddy so I can move it more portably through the house. And I learned from you, and you put your hat on video to have a tent. So I do have a tent for us to stay warm. But that's temporary. What about long term?
And that's a very good point. It is challenging, especially if we lose the grid and eventually we would lose natural gas. And so you have to rely on other things. And it probably is tempting to put in another wood stove or to convert it back. And you could find out what that would cost, but then that comes with its own set of challenges of probably buying a lot of firewood that may be
Mm-hmm.
subject to being pilfered in that kind of a situation. You've got several options all the way from going back to a wood stove to, a full-blown solar power system that could help with some of that. We have a couple of ideas that we'll just bounce off you and throw them into the mix.
So you're doing a
Okay.
great job. And Minnesota is really cold. How cold does it get in your winter?
Wind chill 40 below, regular temperature probably 20 below.
I mean, you're significantly colder than we even are here. While the tent is really good and dressing up is really good, and your house is going to provide some help, you really need some kind of alternative heat source. So your buddy heater is fantastic if you can get some more propane and store some more propane. And with those, you have the small canisters, but you can also use the big one as long as you keep it outside and you take the hose in through the window. But one of the things that I would really recommend is what's called the Vesta. I got it out. The box is behind me.
Oh
somewhere.
yeah, but does that heat like a room up?
My little room right here that we're in, it would heat it up. It's not going to heat up the whole house by any means.
No,
But with
no.
the 3 cans on here, it's almost as good as the space heater that I have on the floor. And you could do a couple of these, but the thing about the canned heat is that it'll store forever, but you can store it inside your house safely. Okay, I wouldn't buy it from the company that sells the Vesta. I would buy it from Sam's Club.
They have a Vesta.
No, they don't have the Vesta, but they have the fuel. So the
Oh,
fuel is
okay.
only $20 for a case of 12 that are 6-hour cans. So that's 72 hours of burn time. Now, you're going to want 3 in here at a time. So you've got to do that math. But you can store a lot of that in a very small place and be safe. These you do have to buy, and they're roughly $100. Sometimes you can get them on sale for less, but it's also a cooker. So this is the heater, and it's got the fan that.
Yeah, Peltier device, which means the heat from the canned heat will actually run the fan. That's what's nice about this is it will actually move the air. You know, a lot of things won't move much air, but this will actually blow the air so that you get some circulation, and it really helps with heating.
And then you can cook on this.
This is like what I have. I have like an old-fashioned one with a little
Okay,
heater.
yeah, that runs off the same principle.
So tell me about your kerosene storage.
Well, it needs to move because I have listened to your videos about storage, and needs to get out of my garage.
Yeah, probably doesn't.
Because not only that's not safe for me, but if there's a fire, it's not safe for the firemen too. That's very dangerous. So yeah, it's nice out in Minnesota for the first time in like years. So one of my next goals is to just like take my day and move it to my shed so I don't have that issue.
That's important. And then with the kerosene, as it ages, you want to make sure that you're putting stabilizer in it, because you don't want to go to use it and then it's not good anymore, because it has about a 5-year shelf life.
Okay, what's that stabilizer called?
You could just look out there for a fuel stabilizer for kerosene.
Not the one you use for gas.
Right. There's different ones for diesel, gas, kerosene. And so, yeah, find the right stabilizer, and that will help extend that shelf life. One other thing that I would recommend is, and I don't know the condition of your home, the insulation, but there are a lot of incentives out there by state governments, federal government, utilities to upgrade your insulation. And sometimes you can actually get that done free, depending on, a variety of factors. But there's incentives that will help you. If you go, and we'll send this over to you, but there's a database, the DSIREUSA.org, and that has all those incentives. So you could pull it up for your state, and you can see what's applicable in both the state incentives, the utility incentives, and the federal government incentives. And, maybe you can get upgraded insulation, upgraded windows, upgraded doors, different things that you can get some help with that will really help in a crisis situation. It'll help your home stay warmer and, not just saving fuel, but it's making your home resilient in some kind of a crisis.
And then another concern that you talked about was water. Now tell me a little bit, because you are really good. Like, you've got your empty bottles filled with water.
So I had all these carboys sitting around that we used to use to make wine. And so they're glass and they're heavy, but I filled them all up with water and put stoppers in them and stuck them in a corner. And now they're sitting around in 40-degree weather in my little crawl space underneath my split entry house. I have all my wine bottles with water, but it was a great way to utilize empty air. I mean, it was just these bottles just sitting there. I think that's good, but I don't think it's enough. But I'm really just afraid of putting water in plastic. Do you have any suggestions about what kind of plastic I could buy so I can lift it?
It's really hard. So they've got some tanks that are specific for that. They're a little bit pricey. You could, in her garage, is your garage insulated?
No, it's not. So it'd have to be in my house, in that same crawl space.
So you're just going to have to do the best that you can. I would make sure when you're researching it that the barrel and I wouldn't go the big barrels. You're barely is it tall enough for a big barrel under there?
It's probably about 4 feet high.
And then, she would have a draining it problem and a filling it issue.
It would be challenging for that. Yes.
So we're probably looking at smaller things. One of the things that I got the other day, it's like the Water Brick, and there's another company that does it, the Aqua
Brick.
They're smaller. Mm-hmm. They're designed for water, so they should be as safe as plastic can be. And you fill those up and they will actually stack like bricks.
Oh, that would be nice.
And so they are manageable.
How cold does your garage get? I'm sure it gets down below freezing, I would guess.
Yeah, because, sometimes the snow doesn't melt off of it, so it doesn't get very warm, no.
If you had space out there, you could put a couple of barrels out there. You just want to keep that water level down so it has room to expand as it freezes. But that would provide some additional storage. If you had a spot that would work.
I can make it work. Yeah. But will they take the cold? Well, they won't crack.
If you get a good water barrel or a water tank that's designed for it, it should be just fine.
Yeah. And like I said, just leave it down. If it's 40 inches tall, you want at least 10% room for that to expand in freezing. So, you just keep it down 4 or 5 inches below the top. And then as that freezes, it will expand, but it won't burst the barrel. But that's another good option. I love the fact that you're harvesting rainwater. That
Yeah,
is,
I have one that comes off the roof, and it's too green to drink unless it was an emergency. Then I run it through, a couple filters, and I have a Berkey to filter it better. But then I also use clean barrels, and I use umbrellas. So when it rains, the water, I have holes in the umbrella, so the water runs in. And that water comes out of the sky crystal clear. I'd still filter it because I don't know what comes from the sky nowadays. But
yeah.
it's just fascinating. If I don't drink it, my plants will.
Exactly, because we need water not just for drinking, but for hygiene purposes and our plants and all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't know what bird has pooped on, in the gutter or on the roof. And so you would want to treat that with some chlorine just to disinfect, but it would be water. And, if you weren't comfortable drinking it, then the garden gets it or the toilet gets it, whatever that need is. But you've done
Yep.
some great things to harvest that rainwater. If you've got other downspouts, are you harvesting all the downspouts?
No, not all of them. I've got my little tiny greenhouse that has two little downspouts on there, and that would be great just to put little buckets underneath that. And I also have my shed, which it doesn't have an asphalt roof. And I think if I could get one of the neighbor guys here to help me rig up a water system, I think we could harvest the rain off of that too. And I do
Sure.
have like an old, not old, we had it for our garden years ago because we gardened off site. I think it probably holds 25 gallons of water that I could run into it. And then it has like a hose spigot on the bottom, so you could attach a hose to it and have the water run out of it too. I'd have to elevate it to get the gravity to flow it out, but that's one of my things too. I just got to convince one of these nice neighbor guys to come over and help me
Yeah.
make him a big
Yeah.
roast beef dinner or something.
Absolutely. And we've talked about community, building that community, including people that can help you with projects and you can help them with other things. And it's such a wonderful thing. So we'll probably address that more in a minute or two.
Let's go ahead and talk about it now.
Okay.
So, who's got your back? If there's a disaster, you have your son that lives with you.
Yep, I have great neighbors next to me. We're both from the same faith community, and we both give our extra garden produce together. So they would be, and then I have just a couple neighbors. I mean, not close, but it's okay. But I also started last year. I started down at the farmers market selling my homemade soap, and then I started making some bread. So I'm connecting with more people in the community, and then I was connected with a couple ladies in the county who are into prepping and preserving and with the same mindset. So I do have a small community. Trustworthy, maybe my neighbors would probably be the most trustworthy, the ones in our same faith community. But yeah, not a lot. I keep to myself. I spent a lot of my life working, and I'd be working 60 hours a week, and I never get to be at home. So now I get to be at home and I don't want to go out and meet people. So
Well,
it's really a stretch for me to actually go out into the farmer's market and put myself out there because I used to manage restaurants. So I was in front of people all the time. And so to me, doing this again is like putting myself out there again. But, it's not 50 hours a week anymore.
and I understand about this. I'm home. I just want to stay home. I don't want to go talk to people because I run out of words real early in the day. But she's pushing me and we are building community. We just encourage you to some extent, to whatever is comfortable for you, to work on building that community and finding those people. Maybe one thing that a lot of people do is they'll work on I don't know if you have a neighborhood watch program, but that's kind of a nice way to get to know people and to kind of be working on the same team and everybody's kind of part of this program where, we're just keeping an eye out for each other. And like I said, I know how hard that can be because it's hard for me sometimes to want to reach out and be super social, but it also has some benefits.
I think you're doing more than you think you are. I think you're building more relationships than you realize.
I hope they end
awesome.
up being beneficial, because, some people, they talk big, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, are they all talk and no do?
Right.
Really
And I may be
important.
that person too. I don't know, because when it comes down to it, I'm going to protect mine.
Well,
I'm going
sure.
to protect my house and my child. That's my
That's
job.
a normal, natural thing for you to do is to protect, especially your son. And I don't know if you're, depending on the situation, maybe your daughter would come to live also, and that is truly important to make sure that you're taking care of your family.
Okay, so let's talk about security. We kind of segued into that. Security
Yeah.
is huge. We have to make sure that we are not a target. Well, we're a target. We're
Yeah,
definitely a target.
definitely.
You were talking about some changes that you'd already made, like you have a deck.
So when I replaced my deck, it had stairs, and I asked the guy who was building it, "Do I really have to put stairs on there? Because there's no reason to someone come up this back stair, none whatsoever. If I want to go downstairs, I can go downstairs through the back door." And he goes, "No, there's no code that you have to. So I remove my steps so no one can come up through my sliding glass door on my deck unless they're a monkey, and then they can, well, whatever. It's yours.
Yeah,
We're that
yeah.
good." And then I had in my garage, I had a service door that had glass windows. Why would you do that? So I had that replaced this year. And that same guy's going to come back in the spring and put on deadbolts. I don't have any deadbolts on my doors. So I'm working on that. And then my basement is actually only 4 feet deep. So there's still another 4 feet where there's windows and stuff. And I'm just afraid that people are going to come in through my windows and break my windows. And then there's no security, there's no heat, there's no nothing. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest fear is my basement, because it's a split entry, so it's only a half basement. I've heard of 3M has a product where you could put on the windows
Yes.
that if someone tried to break in there, they could shatter the glass, but it won't open.
Yeah, and
Do
I
you,
was going to recommend that. It sounds like you're already ahead of the game on that, but I highly recommend that.
have you worked with that?
I actually haven't, but I'm trying to work with a company to get some so that we can do videos. It is a good solution. There's a lot of vulnerabilities in a home, and if you can close most of those with window film or other things, it just increases your security. And those films are amazing. A lot of times crimes are crimes of opportunity, and if that opportunity is just too high, if that cost, if they're banging on that glass and breaking the glass, but it's not giving, they may just move on to somewhere else. The cost on that's $5 to $10 a square foot, which may seem high, but it's really not. You can get a lot of coverage at a fairly good price, and that would offer you a lot of, I think, security.
One of the things that we did, so we have a walkout basement. So we have some of our windows are ground level. One of them was broken. We don't know for sure who did it. What I did after that is once we got that window replaced, we actually put bars on those, because those windows, whether it's the dog running in or the grandkids running in or a ball or somebody with malintent, it's a really easy window to be able to just kick in. It's in the back of our house, so it's not aesthetically negative, but I'm very happy to have those bars on there. And we just picked them up at Home Depot and he installed them. So, and there's all kinds of possibilities, but I really do like the window film thing.
Part of it is the ability. Am I going to be able to cut that straight? You know what I mean? Because it has to fit the window. I have to be able to do this.
I think you can. Okay, one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is something that we are installing right now, actually, on my bedroom door. This is called a doorcade. So it's got like these little, would you call them hinge things?
It's similar to a hinge plate, but it holds this bar on both sides, and it makes a door extremely. I mean, somebody could still end up getting in there, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Can you show me that again?
And so what you're doing is buying time, whether that's employing self-defense measures, getting help on its way, or whatever.
So it's like the 2x6 that you used to have with the metal thing.
Only it's nice and lightweight. It doesn't look obnoxious. So what we're installing this on is our bedroom door, because I need a safe room. So if somebody breaks in, I need a place to be able to go where they can't get to while I call for help, or whether I make preparations to, what's a good word for that?
Dissuade them.
Dissuade them. Yes, we'll put it that way. And I might need a couple minutes to be able to get that. And so by putting this on the door, I can lock them out. It's going to take them a little while to get in. The other thing it can be used for is like hurricane doors. Like, you know how the hurricanes and the weather will blow a door in? This will make it so that it can't blow the door in.
I like that better, because I've seen them one where they brace it up against the floor, but I like that better.
Yeah, this is much better.
Much better. And one of my concerns with it was Okay, so you can just set the bar next to the door, but how do I know that nobody's going to take it away? So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a sticky back Velcro and I'm going to Velcro to the wall right by the door. And then it will always be there.
Is that an Amazon product?
You can get it on Amazon or you can go to their site.
That I'm excited about. I thought about actually getting bars in a 2x6, but that looks more aesthetically pleasing.
It is more aesthetically pleasing and it's so tough. And I'm super happy about that. So one of the things we didn't talk about was light. What are you doing for lighting, emergency lighting?
I have a couple lanterns and really I don't. I was thinking about that today too. I really don't. I rely a lot on God's light.
That's a great light to rely on.
Open the windows, let God in. But I would like to think about getting some like little solar lights. And I do have some flashlights, but
this is what I would recommend. These are hybrid lights and they are solar lights. So they are super fantastic and bright. And then they also, like, you can charge your phone on them. They have the little USB. What is the other one called?
This is the micro USB for charging it. It's got the ability to charge other devices. So we leave these in our,
just
not in the direct sun, just the ambient light. It gets applied especially in the late afternoon. And so these are just in there charging all the time and they're ready to go when we need them.
One of my favorite ones, though, is this one. And it's a hybrid light, but this end has both the magnets under here and a hook. The hybrid lights, they're nice because they're solar recharged. It's God's light that recharges them. And so far, we haven't had any problems and we've been using them for years.
Yeah.
But they're safe. Oh. They're not emitting anything. You're not going to run out of fuel.
I have probably about 35, 50, 75, almost 100 candles.
Candles are super important. I would have candles too, right?
They do produce a little bit of heat.
Yeah.
And definitely light. When we did our little experiment where we turned off our power in the winter, we found out really fast that all the kids are fascinated by candles. So we had to stop using them. But, you know, when it's just big people.
You are doing a fantastic job. When we were looking at it, we're like, is there really that much we can help her with? I hope that this has been a little bit helpful to you. What other questions do you have for us that we might not have covered?
And you had talked here about how to prioritize security, water, food, heat. I'd say yes to all of those. And these little baby steps that you keep making, they're making a big difference. So you put a little bit into security, you put a little more into heat, you put a little more into maybe your gardening, figure out what makes the most sense and work on that. All of these areas are important, but you can't do them all at once. So I would just keep making little steps in whatever direction seems most appropriate. And
I take a little bit out of my retirement account every year. I use that to do things. But in order to do my fireplace, they said it was going to be like $20,000.
Oh, yes.
To redo my, and I'm just like, I don't think that's going to happen because I don't know how long my son and I are going to be here because, eventually we're going to have to downsize. I can't see spending at least $20,000 to do something if we're going to be here for another 15, 20 years.
Right.
Yeah, if I was going to be here, if he was going to be here, but I don't think he has the capability of taking care of a house this size. So, we're going to have to downsize to something smaller or God forbid being in an apartment. That's out of the question. So I'm looking at like another solar generator. I don't believe a gas generator would do me any good if there can't get gas.
And that's a very good point. Yeah. And I was going to ask about that if you had some kind of an inverter generator, but you're right. I mean, at some point that runs out of fuel. As a backup to your solar generator, it has some utility there if you have the ability to store some fuel. But again, when that fuel's gone.
If you don't have fuel for your car, how are you going to go get the fuel?
Well, and the other thing with the gas generator, I'm not as comfortable using that as I am the solar ones.
Well, yeah, because you have to be a mechanic. It's not there in my brain. The mechanic stuff is not there.
That's right. So if he's here, it's all great. But if it's just me, I need to take a different route.
No, let me just plug it in.
So back to this. What else would you like to talk about that we haven't covered?
I think we got it. Thank you about the door thing. I'm just really excited about that. So that gives me such a peace of mind.
That's what this is all about, right? Is peace of mind, and I'm a big believer that when we do our part and do what we can do, God intervenes. You're doing great things.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Well, you guys are doing great things too. Can I interject one more thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It has to be with medications too, because I'm on a medication probably permanently because I have a heart condition. I mean, what do people do out there to be on medications when there's nothing there? I mean, I've heard of incidences already where people can't get their medication. It's just sad. And that's one of the reasons why I got on with Dr. Patrick because of that. And I just think people really need to take a look at their medications and what they can do herbally to help themselves in the future.
And then we have to grow it. We have to
Yep.
find ways that we can grow it because if we're thinking it's going to be shipped from Amazon, we're not thinking right, right? But if most of those things grow like crazy. And so if we've got it in our yard or we have neighbors that are growing it and we're sharing and we're doing things together, we'll be okay.
And it's okay to be stocking up on the pharmaceuticals.
I
And
have.
you do the best you can and you build a stockpile as much as you can. But I love what you're doing, where you're headed for. Are there herbal solutions? Are there natural solutions that can take care of this? So I think you're hitting both angles there.
Barbara, you're amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, for our audience out there, what questions do you have? We all have different situations, right? What have you learned from Barbara today? Or maybe this conversation has brought up a question that you have. Put it in the comments below.
Yeah.
And thanks for being
Yeah.
part of the solution.